Thank you very much. Before I start, let me pay my gratitude to the organizers who found me suitable to address this gathering, especially the glitterati, the literati, the theorists, the writers, and many more. I'm indebted to Dr. Binod Mishra, Dr. Somali Gupta, all the dignitaries we have seen, and of course, I found it an opportunity to meet two very nice people, Professor Prantik and Professor Dinesh Nair. I also fail if I do not take the names of some of the people whom I met and who are still in touch with me, Professor A. Khan. And I can see some faces, namely Rahul, who once upon a time I had taken his PhD Viva, and today I can see him in the midst as his teacher. Thank you very much, my dear friends. You might all be thinking as to what shall I speak, a man from IIT, and in this gathering of literature, language, and what sort. Of course, we are distanced from literature, but we are releasing, cherishing, and nursing literature, my dear friends. The topic that I have chosen today to speak, I think it is a very general topic. And before I start any topic, I usually take some of the lines of a very famous poet who says, "जिसका पता तुझको भी है, जिसकी खबर मुझको भी है, दुनिया से भी छुपता नहीं, ये जाने कैसा राज है." My dear friends, we are living in a different age now. And I always say, if the present generation is not going to change, they will actually have a very difficult time. And I often say, कोई मिलाएगा नहीं हाथ, यदि मिलोगे तब गले तपाक से, ये नए मिजाज का शहर है, जरा कायदे से चला करो. We are in a different age, in a different milieu. And now, as we have been discussing literature, intersections, and disruptions, I think these are two very broad topics. And both of my friends will go into the nitty-gritty of it when they deliver their talks. But I am simply be touching upon the main things of why should we venture forth to make ourselves successful in a new age, in a new milieu with new tools, which many of us call digital literature, digital technology. All of us know the fact that literature, which has since time immemorial been a vital part of global history, has of course witnessed a change. The last 2 years, or 3 years rather, most of us have felt that we're having every day some webinars, seminars, workshops, more of shopping than of work, fine. And now when we have come out of that, we really feel the need that we should discuss things in a very physical atmosphere where people can discuss with each other. I think all of us being teachers, we might have felt that while we were speaking, we were really delivering, but we were delivering the deliverables, but our students were not there, even though the icons were there. I mean, that was a great loss to us. We had no audience. Now the question is, where did this audience go? Thanks to technology, thanks to digital literature, thanks to digital media, thanks to digital humanities. Today, if you simply have a phone, the entire world is with you. The Honorable Vice Chancellor was right to say that today you do not need to go to the library. And there are many books which are not available in the library, but they are available on your slate, on your plate, on your mobile. Every now and then we are with it. How come this change? Is this change also going to bring certain changes in our lifestyles as we always have felt? Of course. And especially perfect lovers of literature often find that literature perhaps is going to cease. But my dear friends,
you be with me, I will run, you have to chase me. Fine? That's all.
Now, whenever we think about literature, I am actually reminded of one very great and famous poet, Maya Angelou, who says, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Still like dust I rise." And literature also is rising. And I say, it is not only rising, rather it is expanding its wings. Today we are not only confined to Wordsworth and Shakespeare and Milton and many others. Today we are doing researches, carrying out researches on water, environment, graphic literature, painting, so many things. No? How a certain thing falls down and then we find literature there and we try to connect literature with science, we try to connect literature with some other things, my dear friends. So it is expanding, and it is expanding in the way, I think every young guy is a poet, thanks to technology. Earlier, we only used to think, can we really write poetry? Now what is happening? You are blogging, you are vlogging, you are writing your diaries, and in technical institutes we give them as assignments and try to find out where is the creativity. Is creativity lost like wisdom? No, creativity is on the rise. So that's such a beautiful world. But provided we actually know how to utilize it. We actually know, because the choice ultimately is ours. You might have all come across several of the tools that you are using. Many of my friends often tell me that they bring my NPTEL lectures to the classroom. And even when the students are not there, they send the lectures to the students and they send the link and they can get to know everything. You can hear your teachers live if you have a Swayam portal, if you have an NPTEL portal, my dear friends. Of course, literature can be split up in different categories. In the past, the genre was different, but most of you might have known that now even a poem is written in a very prose form. Provided the prose had that sort of poeticity, it becomes poetry. You are all aware of the fact. How did this happen? How many new youngsters have emerged as very good writers, creative writers, thanks to Instagram and many more. Fine, they are writing. One recent example is Roorkee. I think most of you might have heard the name, my dear friends. Now, when we talk about literature, and we find that learning the art of English, can literature simply be written, or can it be learned simply by being in a classroom, or simply by writing a poem, interpreting a poem? Not at all. I think we are confining our students' mind in creativity by telling that this is actually the interpretation. Now the interpretations are changing thanks to theorists like Prantik. Interpretations are changing. Creativity has found its wings in a very different manner. We are trying to find out. Now, comic literature, that is also an emerging field. Students are doing PhD on it. Recently, one of my students, now she is actually doing a research on vulnerability studies, care, caution. Now see, can we really say that there is no literature? And she gives me all these stories and says, "Sir, you see, here there is caution, here there is trauma, here there is queer, here there is so many things. Why don't we unfold?" Of late, the memories that were faded, the memories that were lost, we are unfolding memories, memory studies. How did this become possible? Thanks to digital literature, thanks to digital humanities, my dear friends. Today, we are at pace with the world. What happens in some part of the world, next day it becomes a research topic. have we not come a long way, my dear friends? But of course, like majority of us, there are a select group of people who have got a lot of apprehensions. In communication, we say, this is actually a resistance to change. I can't teach it. When a new book comes and people try to put it in the syllabi, there are many voices, right? Hostile voices. There is a hostility in the department also. I cannot teach it. Read it. Unless and until we read, right? How can really we teach? And for reading, you do not need a book now. Your slate is the key to the world, isn't it? Your tablet, it is not the medical tablet, it is actually the literary tablet. Unfold, unfold, unfold. And then you will find how the world has become so beautiful. Literature has always been an interactive, engaging process, no doubt, but then with different perspectives. The reader of literature, yesterday only I was talking to Dr.Binod. Now there is a retelling. Fine. So we are retelling our myths, detailing our myths, and bombarding our minds with new ideas, pixelizing it in a different way, thanks to Chitra, thanks to Amish, thanks to many more. So Sita emerges now in a different avatar. Only last week, some of my scholar was giving a presentation on Supranakha. How Supranakha has been delineated. And we could really found, there is actually a sense of creating awareness among people even towards our ancient old myths. And then there is a hammering NEP. Fine. We are now saying, bring Indian knowledge system to the classroom. Fine. And many of us who simply feel that we should simply teach Australian, American, Canadian literature, now we are perturbed. Fine. So this is our own legacy. Many of us even do not know. Fine. So especially the younger generation, when they bring such topics, it of course becomes very enterprising like this. So it is now, I have in my title written, virtual reality, V with a small v, not with a full V, not with a capital V. And there is an intensity. In the days to come, I think most of you will agree and admit with me, there will be no such classrooms like this. Right? No classrooms like this. The Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir was talking about the hybrid mode. Still there are many people who prefer hybrid mode. When I was planning for this journey, my better half said, why don't you speak online? I said, I'm now tired of online. Let me be offline now. Fine? So whenever you keep on moving, whenever there is a new change, we all have apprehensions galore. And I'm reminded of Tennyson doing one of his very famous poem, Locksley Hall, though it was written on a different theme. But there are certain lines which I find I must share with you what he said in Locksley Hall and how ambivalent he was when he said, knowledge comes but wisdom lingers, and I linger on the sword. And the individual withers, and the world is more and more. Knowledge comes but wisdom lingers. He bears a laden breast. This is now a reference to his friend who is no more. Full of sad experiences, moving toward the stillness of his rest. My dear friends, I say, not rest. Let there be a sort of unrest. There will again be a new genre of literature. We all are witness to the fact how once upon a time we had so many reservations against science fiction, against haiku poetry and many more. Now somebody who writes or carves a haiku poet is considered very important. There are very beautiful names. Fine, you also might have heard about them. Some of them we lost. but there is one name which you can go through and find out, R.K. Singh. He was also like me in one of the IITs, IIT Dhambad. He's a haikist in the real sense. And once you unfold his lines, you can find how real literature really tries to discover its own path, its own way. Now, most of us, when we feel that we should take a leap towards digital humanities, and those many of us who have got a sort of apprehension, let us take a sort of leap into the world of digital humanities. My dear friends, we are archiving many things now. The Vice Chancellor was right that when he was the member of one committee were all the languages. And now there is another adventurous task going on. The words of the regional languages are being translated, many more. Because we want that Indian knowledge system should thrive only when our teachers, our learners, our exponents strive. At times I become poetic, so please excuse me. So digitization is rapidly becoming one of the standard forms of preservation for libraries, archives, and information centers, analog materials. The newer process is allowing preservationists to ensure the information contained within fragile organic materials will still be viewable to the future generations. However, as technology changes, there are concerns that the methods used today to preserve these materials will not be sufficient or even viable in the future. This applies to both the hard copy materials that are converted into digital copies as well as born digital forms, or those that were created as digital copies initially. For this reason, digitization is not strictly a preservation activity, as the new files will require preservation as well. It is important to understand what digital preservation is and how it can be effectively used to preserve collective knowledge for future generations. My dear friends, digital humanities, I think most of us think of how to define it. It's very difficult to come at a common definition of digital humanities, but then it is actually a logical consequence of the possibility for the humanities to seize the opportunities of the digital era. There appears that it is a transdisciplinary approach to the humanities and social sciences based on a set of methods and devices related to digital technology. In other words, the digital humanities represents the field of research in the humanities and social sciences that uses tools developed by new technologies. In one of the conferences, we call it DAT camp. That actually stands for all the letters of that. Actually, that is an acronym, and it stands for the Humanity and Technology Camp. There was a conference in 2010 in Paris in May, where it was said that the digital humanities concerns all the human and social sciences, arts and letters. The digital humanities do not make a clean break from the past. On the contrary, they are based on all the paradigms, know-how and knowledge specific to these disciplines, while mobilizing the tools and unique perspectives of the digital field. You'll be surprised to know that many authors who are citing, quoting or whatsoever, now if you get a chance to talk to that person, earlier it was very difficult, but now thanks to technology, you can have an interview of those people. Recently, one of my students who was working on Tavis Khair, he told me that can we really have an interview with Tavis Khair? I think maybe he will be reluctant to give you an interview, but let's try. He tried, and Tavis gave an interview. And not only an interview, he also remarked that in India there are many people who are doing good work. And I have read one of your books on critical responses to feminism. So I was really surprised. So sometimes these surprises delight in you, because had there been no technology, perhaps you could have saddened that you also exist, my dear friends. So now for Prantik, the pasture is so greener, because he is contributing a lot to the world of theories. And so is the case with Professor Nair, Dinesh Nair. They have contributed, as they told me, that they have given several talks. And not only they, Even many of my colleagues who were so hesitating to give a talk online, they also gained a lot of confidence thanks to online classes, thanks to webinars. Fine? But when it came to giving content in writing, that was really a bit difficult for many of our colleagues. But anyway, the world had changed a lot. Now, since everything is being archived, in the field of archives, the introduction of new digital tools and applications in the humanities has not gone unnoticed. Indeed, the influence of these changes has affected the methods of processing, management. Archivists are now forced to rethink their collection management methods. Libraries and archive centers are increasingly transforming themselves. We can get a book which is not available, we can get it, we can borrow the book from some other libraries from different countries. So that is a new way that without books also researches can be conducted. Archiving has become an increasingly complex process, no doubt. All of you might have seen recently there was, thanks to the team who developed Aurea Kathi. Many of you might know that during pandemic, this Aurea Kathi is actually the first intelligence bot artist from India, where two people, one Rasid and then one Paul, they actually created something, and that was a sort of poem. The poem was not in fact like a poem, but what they tried to show that with your artificial intelligence, even poetry can be written. So Aurea's first poem is as follows. Now these are some of the things. I think we come to Aurea's first poem. Go back, please. Go forward, please. It's not there. Go back. Yes. This is actually the first poem by these two people who developed this Aurea Kathi. First artificial intelligence bot artist from India. I was a little catastrophic. I was just a little kid. This is nothing you look like your son has ever been done with a game. It worked like a month. I was not a fan. Now, the formats of culture in India span the analog and the digital now. From the vantage point of present moment, while it may seem that today's contemporary culture shall inevitably transform into a total digital future, the brute fact of the matter is that we live in multiple time zones of history now. Thus, from novels to screens. Earlier, in literature, we did not have much scope for bringing films. Now what is happening? Many of our literature people, they are supervising researchers on film studies. One of my guys is doing a research on Charlie Chaplin, fine? And what he has done, he's taking it in a different way, and there he has made how silence becomes a communication, and he has taken all the films of Chaplin. Likewise, many of you also might have found that there are now film studies. There are people undertaking research on food studies, and it is very difficult to find out the text, but then with the sort of youth that we are having now, we are getting plenty of materials on food studies, on water studies, on many more. Thus, from novels to screens, we can find Twitter. There are people who are also conducting researches on Instagram, on Twitter. Now they are also conducting researches on some of the serials. There's one famous serial among ma'ams, Imli. Many of you might be watching. One girl student came to me and said that I can do a research on this serial only. And she had started gathering data. Of course, it's a bit challenging, but then she had started doing it. So the world is now open. Of course, many of us are still skeptic about it, but then once we decide, we can go ahead. Otherwise, my dear friend, in the times to come, we'll have the problem of survival. I do not teach. What I do is,
You are Tughlaq, you are Barani, fine, you are this, you are that. Because I remember what is my main task. My main task is to create among them a sort of desire to be communicative. And at the end of the day, when this drama is finished, I want them and I keep changing. I keep changing the roles, role reversals. Somebody who is sitting always on the back so that his turn may not come, next time he becomes Tughlaq. Even with the broken English that he or she speaks, but then he is made to speak. Otherwise, when the placements companies come, they will not be taken. So that's the problem. So your challenge is different, mine is different, but we are in the same boat. Of course, access to digital life is still framed by issues of the digital divide. But I say, is it a digital divide? No, it is not a digital divide. It is actually a digital unification. In rural areas also they are listening to your lectures. Fine? So how come it is a digital divide? Now everyone has got a smartphone and the lectures are there. That is why when they do not come to your class, you are very unhappy. But remember, they are listening to you somewhere or the other. So please be happy. Don't shout at them. Don't scold them. They are somewhere or the other, they are raising your TRP because when the time of your appraisal comes, they say that they listen to your online lectures and they know it. My dear friends, in a country where we find that there are less opportunities, even if they are offline doing things and they are learning, is it not a good step? Is it not a sort of success drive? Of course it is. Now, we find, I think at the time while I was compiling this paper, Indian social media users was estimated at 530 million users on WhatsApp. And then Facebook's largest user base similarly is composed of 290 million. Likewise, the 17 million Indian users of Twitter's global 330 million user base have a disproportionately wide impact on their comparatively narrow slice of platform pie. What does this matter? Without overstating the influence of social media in India, we are doubtlessly witnessing the dawn of a new age of communication and society, and with its own forms of inscription and culture. While the digital dust of the social web is plagued by questions of privacy and data sovereignty, there is also the real possibility, and it is in this sense that digital cultures offer a new space of participatory possibility in India. I think nowadays we have started hearing from people, this is my space. Especially the students also, they have become so sensitive about their spaces. So this is their space. I think this is only because of the technology that everyone tries to have their own space. Sometimes there are some sort of hideous spaces. Sometimes there are avatars where they do not want to be seen, but at least they are with the media. Now, thus the first question of digital cultures is, what is the text? I think Prantik is going to discuss in his lecture that why do we need a book in an age of selfie? Am I right, Prantik? Right. So the second is, what does digitality do to it? Akin to the historic problem of limited translators across Indian languages, we need to prepare for the challenge of how digital thinking will be apprehended both culturally and in scholarship. To start off, we need to see how the maker culture, somebody has quoted in his paper, maker culture of digital humanities is a key to decolonizing the humanities in India, and part of these practices, in part, step from adapting to the emerging digital cultures, the rise of blogs and vlogs. We often find that with blogs, we often give them some assignments that you start writing your blogs. Because in the time to come, they have to write reports, they have to write a description, they are being sent to the corporate world. So they need to develop some sort of writing, not the sort of literary writing of course, but their blogs are being sent to us and we check it and then ensure that they are emerging, they are developing something in terms of language learning. The proliferation of curricula in academic English departments as catering to the marketplace or even a sign of decline is understandable if those who hold such a view are looking out for their own specialties or interests. Within the academic settings, the zero-sum competition over scarce resources like faculty lines. The Honorable Vice Chancellor was right to say that when we appoint teachers, sometimes many of you also might be in certain boards, you find that he is not appointable, employable. Fine? So the care needs to be taken because somebody you appoint today will keep you embarrassing, harassing for another 30 years. So please be cautious. And our caution lies in the way we are training them before they go to face the world, before they go to face the employment opportunities. Now people tend to use social media, as most of us know, to express and communicate their personality. Sometimes it becomes very embarrassing when you start showing all your private activities there, where you went. One day I told one of my colleagues that you had gone there to conduct a viva. Why are you putting it there on your Facebook? Where's the privacy now? Where's the confidentiality that you're signing the papers? I think this is an academic crime, my dear friend. We need to be very sensitive. I mean, if you are so much obsessed with technology, with Facebook, Twitter, whatsoever, please see to it that the outside world also hears you. You never know, next time when you come for a next interview, the other person who objected to might be one of the experts. So this may cause a lot of embarrassment. Let us try to be very sensitive about that. Now, why this digital divide? Why we are talking about all this? Once again, I am reminded of one very beautiful line where one शायर said, सहम सी गई है ख्वाहिशें, जरूरतों ने उनसे शायद ऊंची आवाज में बात कर ली. My dear friends, we are imposed today, and that is why the real you does not come out. The virtual you in hiding comes out. And we often, we suppress, sometimes or the other, that comes out. So it's better, fine, in order to unravel this, let us try to be with the wind and not go against the wind. Again, I'll say, ma'am will object, survival is critical. Fine? My dear friends, today, if we are not delivering, I'm talking of the corporate culture, you're a gone case. And it's a true fact that in the days to come, almost all the institutions are going in the same direction. If we are not contributing, they may not be considered. Because there's a dirt, as you all know. And when there's a dirt, your mirth will not do much difference. So, digital, of course, is a big thing in India, but it will take some time to find roots in rural areas. Even though mobile technology has reached there, rural libraries, if we think of having rural libraries, each one of us can develop a sort of rural libraries where we as teachers, since we have that weapon of communication with us, we can create rural libraries. If every panchayat and can have local libraries, it will give a big boost to increase readership. Electronic literature in India, of course, is gaining momentum, but most of the time it is only in urban areas, not in rural ones. Because you might have during your classrooms also came to realize that many of them will say there are some glitches, there's connectivity problem, there's so many, sometimes they are true, sometimes they are false. So the born digital and digital first approaches are thus widely acclaimed by the readers, writers and publishers as concluded from the survey, especially after the pandemic, though there is still a lack of effective publishing strategies and government policies. In the realm of the digital, we are afforded the possibility to conceive of communities whose voices we have yet to hear. Digital cultures need interpretation just as much as the printed texts of yesterday. To study the emerging topographies of digital cultures, much beyond the social web, is to listen to the murmurings of an expanded public sphere. The task that now awaits us is to create a more responsible scholarship for an expanded Indian digital public sphere across languages and registers. You might find, though I have this experience, that now children also want to hear stories. We are again retreating. And my grandchild, every day at 10 p.m. there will come a call. Please tell me a story. I think this sort of consciousness has started even from the infants. And I have every day or the other to think of a story. What sort of story should I tell? I think of bringing stories from Panchatantra. I talk of bringing stories from the Mahabharata. I talk of bringing stories from some greatest story writers of the world, because our aim is to create Indian knowledge system, IKS. It is time now that we realized it, because we have to distinguish ourselves. The Vice Chancellor rightly mentioned Ek Bharat, Shrestha Bharat, Akhand Bharat. So if we have to distinguish ourselves, and if we want to do something new, something distinct, once again, some of the lines, कुछ अलग करना है तो भीड़ से हटकर चलिए. भीड़ साहस तो देती है, लेकिन पहचान छीन लेती है, my dear friends. So, if we really want that we should have an identity of ours, wherever you are, try to continue to have your own line of thinking, because there is no delay that you will be sought after. And sometimes there may be some imbalance, sometimes there may be some sort of ambivalence, as Lord Tennyson faced. But again, when he wrote another poem, Locksley Hall, after 60 years, what he said is also true of you have stopped. Go before. Here there are two. One is, if you really want to keep your identity intact, my dear friend, let us realize this in the words of Rudyard Kipling. If you keep your head, and when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on yours, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Or being hated, don't give away to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. So it is better I do not talk wise. But again, let me go back to Tennyson, who in Locksley Hall, the title of the poem is Locksley Hall After 60 Years. And this poem was published in 1886, where he says, and from there we can take some mantra, those exponents of literature who still feel that the old books are good, they are worth, follow light and do the right. For man can half control his doom. For man can half control his doom, till you find the deathless angel seated in the vacant tomb. Forward, let the stormy moment fly and mingle with the past. I that loathed, all of us, some of us really loathe what is happening. I that loathed have come to love him. Love will conquer at the last. So our love for literature finally conquered, and we will be in a position that not only shall we expand our wings, not only is literature expanding its wings, but it is enhancing its life, of course, in varied ways. Thank you very much.